Welcome.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Balancing innovation, cloud costs, and AI. The governance regarding AI, as well as the cloud cost that comes probably with AI. For those of you that do not know Softline Group nor in Europe yet, we are part of Noventic, a global organization, roughly 6,500 employees worldwide, based in 60 locations, growing fast, specifically, of course, in data and AI. One of the partnerships that we have is with AWS, where we have indeed the premier partner status and soon also have the competency for AI and data. When you see where we started actually 12 years ago, was in the IT asset management space. So finding out exactly what kind of assets you as a company in your data centers have. Based on that, we started building the application portfolio, so finding out what HR, sales, or whatever is using, migrating them to the cloud, modernizing them, managing the cloud, and at the end also making sure that the invoices that you get from AWS or Azure is managed in a proper way. And yes, of course, also we use, of course, heavily AI to make our lives easier as well. And AI can, of course, be a success for all of us, and hopefully will be, but it can also probably be our last failure that we ever do if we do it incorrectly. And unfortunately, we don't learn that quickly. Of course, there are some negative news about AI. We all know them. Like, for example, that a chatbot suddenly is lying about discounts that customer gets, or that there is some racial bias in the chatbots that are out there in the AI, or that we get hallucinations, like inventing court cases in the US. And last but not least, certainly something that you do not want to have in your own organization is that your chatbot on your website or your internal chatbot suddenly is swearing to your customers or is saying that you are the worst company in your industry, in your sector. But still, there is a huge buzz about AI. That's why all of us are currently in here. But under that, there's also some reality that we have to face as well. The reality that beneath all of this, we see that 60% of the knowledge workers will probably end up using AI and will help us in doing the automation for 60% of our daily activities. So yes, it will definitely transform our work as IT people, but also in the finance, in the healthcare, in the chemical industry, in all kinds of layers in the global industry. But there are also some risks which I would like to highlight today and see if we can manage them by using proper governance. With risks that can be categorized in what the EU currently, for example, is doing in the regulatory space, the reputational space that's out there, where indeed chatbots are saying something that you do not want to do, or that personal information is leaking, to the operational risk of implementing AI. And the people that are concerned with the governance within our organizations, they recognize that they need to do something regarding the governance of AI. But they also recognize if we should do something about the governance, it will cost us a lot of money to do this properly. So the question is, what makes an AI platform a trustworthy partner that we can use in our daily activities? Here you see some examples. So we need to know how is the AI models, how are they trained? Is there some hallucination or bias in there? And yes, I learned this afternoon that sometimes bias is okay, but normally we say we don't want to have this. But also, is it transparent? Is it safe? These are all kinds of things that we need to recognize to implement AI properly within our systems, within our organizations. So there is really a need for governance. But as you all know, governance is not something that we simply can introduce. It takes time to implement those processes. So it is indeed something complicated that we need time for to do it and understand what we are doing. Because you currently see that a lot of teams are currently working in the AI space, where data scientists are doing something, some other teams are doing something, and if you have a global organization, like we learned this morning from Lidl and Kaufhof, we don't have control always of what people in other countries are doing. There's a lot of manual effort that we have to see in there. Also the fact that this is something that addresses the engineers, the data scientists, up to C-level management, and somehow they need to communicate on the same level about a topic that interests them, all of them. So if you look at the necessities of governance, we think there actually are three things we should do. We should monitor and evaluate how we build our AI system. We should look at the facts, metrics in there, and do this throughout the whole life cycle of this AI model, from start to finish, to do it properly. If you look at, for example, the EU AI Act, also in the big room this afternoon, there were some statements made about this. We have to look first of all about this high-risk AI system. The first question is then, of course, what is a high-risk AI system? That's question one. Then, of course, you also have to look at, okay, what parts of my system should we have a look at? And we recognize, indeed, if you look at the key capabilities of a governance model, it should look at the compliance, the risk management, the risk identification, so what kind of risks do we have, and do that throughout the complete life cycle. Therefore, within our solution that we use, there are actually three capabilities, like the documentation, the evaluation, and also doing this for the whole risks that you will encounter in your AI implementation. If you would like to simulate this more or less in a real-life use case, then you see again the three categories. Then somebody in your organization has some bright idea regarding a problem that he has. So there's a use case that somebody is creating, and he brings it into your organization, discusses it, what should be done to implement it. And a lot of data and documentation that are being created that normally is moved away after the change or incident is being implemented, but now you should capture it. Because at the end, or in the next step, once you are building it, the solution in your AWS, Azure, GCP, or whatever environment you use, you still need to inform those data engineers, those MLOps people, what you are needing. And of course, all of this in the testing phase should be monitored and to check if all those requirements are there. Once you're then deploying the solution in those hyperscalers, then of course, again, you need to still be able to monitor exactly what I've tested and built. Is it in the same way in a production environment? And during that whole life cycle, you need to make sure that it is still being monitored, that it's being documented, and that it still applies to the original use case that you were discussing about. When you look at the solution that we found to make this happen, it more or less fully complies to the AI Act. So once implementing this solution, you also means automatically that if you, of course, still do all the steps correctly, and still you as a customer are the responsibility to do this, that you comply to the EU Act for, let's say, 80% of your time. So there's no need to manually find out what do I need to do to make this happen. If we look at some time frames how we currently do this, then once you come to us, we first define out, okay, is there a pilot? What is the use case that you're having? Then do some testing, implement it, and then look for the next steps we can do this. So it is not something that, like all other projects as well, you don't do it in 1 to 3, 4 weeks. It takes time to do this properly. Lucky for us, and maybe if you have seen it in the slide deck, we are not the owner of the solution. We use a solution from IBM for this. IBM watsonx Governance. As you may be seen on the IBM stand, IBM has 3 solutions in the watsonx environment. watsonx Data, watsonx AI, but also watsonx Governance. And this is something which is more and more important, because data and AI is something that all other vendors also have, but the governance part is really lacking. That is why in this quarter, AWS announced that it will incorporate watsonx Governance in their ML solution as well. So that means if you can currently have AWS, you can go to the AWS Marketplace, download the software, and we can help you, if you like, in implementing the governance on your current AI solutions. More information on this very long link in the display. Once you, however, are starting doing this in AWS, Azure, GCP, whatever is out there, at the end of the month, you will get your invoices. And probably you have had your first discussions with your finance officer or CFO regarding your budget of your cloud cost. Because probably he was surprised that the first 3 months everything was okay. But month 5, suddenly when you start using those AI models, your cloud spend went through the roof. No budget for that. What is happening here? So I don't know who of you is familiar with the term FinOps. Nobody? Nothing? Great. FinOps is part of the FinOps Foundation in America. It's a framework to bring IT people, business people together to collaborate regarding all the costs regarding cloud. Because what an IT developer or a data scientist currently is doing in the cloud, he can recreate a very large data set. And a cloud engineer can create a complete data center within 5 minutes, and your costs start running sky high. In the past, when you had a project on-prem, you go to your IT manager, you ask for approval, and then the IT manager started buying some hardware. And 3-4 months later, in your data center, suddenly you had 10 more servers. With AI and with the cloud space, of course, because it's all with a few mouse clicks, it's working. Your invoices also get in your environment without the CFO or somebody from finance knowing it. So they get scared. So what you can do in a FinOps, because it's 2 separate topics actually, the Fin for the financial part and the Ops for the operational part. Also in the Ops part, you can use AI to manage your cloud spend. And specifically, I think in the finance sector, that's good to know that you are in control of your financial costs regarding your cloud. With that, we can do some finding some actions, because in the cloud, you can imagine, if you look at AWS, for example, we have more than 2,000 services with 10 or 20 of buttons you can play with. For data scientists or MLOps people, I think a few of their services with a few of their buttons, they know exactly what to do with that. But since there are so many and every button has a cost involved, you can't do this manually. So you need to use AI to make this happen properly. So what we once implementing do is that you find here on the right side the stack of all the components used in your AI environment to make it happen to the outside world or to make it happen to your internal organization. And then we find out where are there some actions that we need to do to make it perform better, to make it perform in a way that it really meets the demands of your request. Because I can deploy a huge virtual machine with a huge AI capacity on it, but if there are just 2 people using it, it makes no sense to have such a high-paced and high-cost application. And of course, we can also do this all in the boundaries or the governance of what you have set. And last but not least, the solution that we have here on the right gives you within half a day hundreds of recommendations for your cloud environment. something you cannot do yourself manually. So that's where AI comes in to help, to make sure that every button that you can do to make an application perform in a way that you need it, and also you want to pay for it, is being adjusted automatically. Use cases for this last application are in the optimization phases, of course, when moving from on-prem to the cloud, but also if you have some sustainability issue regarding how many CO2 spent do we have, for example. What do we, as Softline / part of the big Innovate organization, currently do with AI at our customers in finance? And I have 3 examples here. One is a bank, the Dukhan Bank in Qatar, one of the leading banks in Qatar, where we just started a few years ago with our first steps in AI with having what currently is called an easy chatbot. Based on that, we learned and then moved to a voice bot, where Telecom Serbia, for example, currently is using the voice bot to help their customers with finding the right information what they currently need by just talking to the customer, talking to the voice. And last but not least, I think this is the most important one here for us currently, is we have multiple bots available at Raiffeisenbank. One of them, for example, is in the operational space, where it took them a lot of time to find out a 360-degree view of their customers. Now they can, when a new customer comes in, within 3 minutes, they will know mostly everything is available in their systems and other systems available in their chatbot. So within just a few minutes, they can decide what to do with this current customer or new customer. This saves their employees currently a lot of time in managing all the customers that they have. For now, this was my part of the presentation. I know we as people, or we as humanity, we went to the moon. If you would like to go to Mars even, there is at our booth a Mars robot that you can win. Please feel free and come to our booth, scan the QR code, and hopefully you're one of the lucky people to win the robot. Thanks for your time.